Here today. We're going to kick off the session for responding and rebuilding on how our work makes a difference. I'm Lexi Taylor, a finance operation analyst here at Niagara Bottling. We have two wonderful gentlemen we're going to hear from today. First, we're going to hear from Todd Fountain. He is the general manager of emergency preparedness with Duke Energy. Todd has over 30 years of experience in the energy industry. He has also held various leadership positions throughout his career, including journeyman lineman, director of distribution control center, and director of vegetation management. His extensive expertise in operational management, storm restoration, and emergency preparedness has been a key in ensuring resilience, safety, in Duke Energy's infrastructure. Then we will hear from Mike Wedell, who's here with us in person today, Deputy Chief of City of Ontario Fire Department. Mike has over 20 years of experience with the Ontario Fire Department, currently leads the Operations Bureau. He is responsible for the department's day-to-day operations, including oversight of Ontario International Airport, Fire Station, and Fire Dispatch Center. The borough also manages specialized teams such as Bomb Squad, Urban Thing, and Hazmat. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Todd, who's going to kick us off.
Thank you, Lexi. Appreciate that. Share my screen real quick. Lexi, can you see it okay?
We can see it. Almost.
Thank you.
Nope. Hold on. So black. Saw a little glitch there for a second. Still nothing on our end, Todd. There we go.
You have it now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. All right. Thank you. As Lexi mentioned, I'm Todd Fountain. I'm the general manager of emergency preparedness for Duke Energy, Florida. I've been with Duke Energy a little over 34 years in different roles. Currently the regional incident commander and general manager for Florida. So a little background on Duke Energy, Florida. So in Florida, we serve a little over 2 million customers across 35 counties, about 20,000 square miles service territory, about 5,200 miles of transmission line, about 32,000 of distribution line, 18,000 of which are overhead, 14,000 are underground. We have the capability of producing about 12,000 megawatts of electricity through 30 generation sites. That's the Florida perspective. We also have customers in North Carolina, South Carolina, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky as well. So 2024 was definitely a busy season for us, as we had 3 hurricanes make landfall in our service territory. The first one being Hurricane Debbie, which was a Category 1 hurricane. We experienced about 350,000 customers out. We mobilized 3,000 resources into the state of Florida, and we had about 95% of our customers restored within the first 24 hours. After Debbie, we experienced a Category 4 hurricane, which was Hurricane Helene, which came with a record storm surge that we've never seen before in our barrier islands. We had about 800,000 customers out. We mobilized a little over 8,500 resources to respond, and we were 95% restored within the first 72 hours of the event. The ironic part about Helene and Debbie, both hurricanes made landfall in our Big Bend area of Florida, which was the 3rd hurricane in 13 months to make landfall in that same area. The year prior, we had Hurricane Idalia, which was a Category 3 hurricane, move in the same area. So extremely busy in that one part of our service territory. So after we cleaned up from Helene, we were faced with Hurricane Milton, which was a Category 3 hurricane. We had a little over 1 million customers out. We mobilized a little over 16,000 resources, and we're 95% restored within the first 96 hours of Milton. There was only about less than a 5-day break between Helene as we went into Milton. So a lot of things we do pre-storm and outside of our storm season is the investment in our grid, maintaining our grid, and we've deployed a lot of self-healing technology. So over 75% of our customers are on a self-healing team, which think about it in simple terms, much like a GPS in your car, you put in an address and they'll find you the best route. Our grid actually reconfigures if it sees a fault and isolates the fault down to the lowest impact as possible. Just in last year alone, we saved over 300 million minutes of interruption just in our 3 hurricanes last year. So with the self-healing grid, so a lot of investment in our grid and bringing it up to smart technology. A lot of our work is done pre-season. What we do prior to storm season, prior to June 1st each year, a lot of work with our county EOCs. We have a very good relationship with each of our EOC centers in the counties. We inspect our base camps. We inspect our staging sites. So one of the things we learned back in 2017 with Hurricane Irma was the importance of having resources here early. Florida's a peninsula, so basically I-75 or I-95 is our only way in and only way out. We used to stage resources in Georgia out of the path of the storm and then bring them in. But then as everyone else is returning home from being evacuated, the bottleneck and the confusion of trying to get resources through that was a challenge. So now we bring them in early, get them as close to the impacted area that we think it'll be, but staying out of harm's way, which is usually a chess match for us. As I mentioned last year, we went through the 3 hurricanes last year. We did have record storm surge. Anyone who's been in the Pinellas Barrier Islands of Florida, which is our Clearwater Beach, St. Pete Beach, all through there, knows the impact and how close we are in the community. Storm surge wreaked havoc on a lot of our underground facilities, required a lot of change out, a lot of work. Those 2 pictures there, probably 48 hours after landfall. So that's what the saltwater intrusion had done to our facilities. One of the biggest things we do is, as I mentioned, our partnership with our emergency operations centers at each of the counties and our community leaders and working in our communities is paramount in our restoration. Staying lockstep with them, communicating with our customers start the event is the only way we can be successful. We work with the counties as we'll provide line crews to work directly with the counties as they do road clearing after a storm, and they'll go through and make sure all the lines and everything are out of the roadways and thoroughfares so we can start getting in and having access. Also for emergency management to have ingress and egress of the different areas as we work through. We also assign bucket trucks to our county EOCs to work directly with them on prioritizing some of the work. We do work on our critical customers first, our large accounts, as well as our hospitals, jails, water treatment facilities, and those type of facilities first as we move in through restoration. Some of our lessons learned from previous storms. Back in 2017, we had Hurricane Michael, which is a Category 5 hurricane, hit our panhandle, devastated the area up there, pretty much leveled the entire service territory. We found the need to put up the pop-up customer care kiosk so folks can go have face-to-face contact, interaction with our team to make sure they get all the information as far as rebuilding, permitting, anything they need to accomplish, and as well as estimated time restoration when we plan on having their community back up and running. Also key is working with our EOCs and our fire chiefs to make sure that as we're doing restoration, and we saw this in Milton, making sure the fire department is with us at all times when we're restoring the larger areas, making sure they have adequate water. I know in the Pinellas area, we had challenges with water pressure. They coordinated tanker trucks to come over from the Orlando area, from the middle of the state, to be with us as we started re-energizing larger areas. But that coordination and work side by side with our EOCs is paramount in our success. So with that, Lexi, I'll turn back over to you or open up for any questions.
All right, well, good morning on behalf of the City of Ontario, more specifically my Fire Chief, Chief Gerken. Well, thank you very much for having us. It's a pleasure to be a part of this conversation. My name is Mike Wedell. I am the Deputy Chief of Operations within the Ontario Fire Department. I have been there for well over 20 years now, serving in multiple different capacities, working my way up through our chain of command. So I've served in all the different positions to include firefighter, fire paramedic, engineer, captain, battalion chief, and a couple different deputy chief roles. From the City of Ontario, because I know we have a large audience, bigger than what's just important, I'm going to kind of set the stage a little bit so you kind of understand, I guess, my level of experience and the citizens and community in which I serve. So the City of Ontario, not too far away from where I'm standing here in Diamond Bar, we're the premier city of the Inland Empire and have rapidly become the economic heart of the region. So the City of Ontario is not new. It's been around for well over 130 years now, but continues to grow and expand. As a fire department, the city covers approximately 50 square miles. We have 180,000 approximately population. Now that's residents. We also have a large influx of visitors and employees. So at any average day, when we plan for disasters and preparedness, we're planning for upwards of over 300,000 people in our city or community at any one time. As a city, we have this balanced community. And what that means is we have a really good mix of residential, commercial, warehousing, manufacturing. We had a large section of agricultural, which has diminished through the years as the community has been built out. It is a large transportation hub, well known, certainly in the West Coast, but I would say nationwide. We have 3 major freeways that run through the city, 2 major rail lines. We have an international airport, and certainly with our proximity to LA and Long Beach, with the harbors there, a lot of trucking, hence where the warehousing comes into play. So from the fire department, I guess from my profession, that makes for an exciting career. Okay, we call that very career fulfilling. And I had a fair amount of my experience, comes from the recruitment side of the house. And I like to share this because, again, from a profession standpoint, all of what I just shared, while we would be considered a mid-size city or fire department, we have a big city feel, and we certainly have a big city threat and hazards, okay? And from a public safety standpoint, we look at threats and hazards as our job to protect our community against those. And so it's there's a fair amount out there. And so when I talk about measures that we put in place to mitigate those hazards, I hope that that's kind of where this conversation goes. So our fire department, we're organizationally set up with 7 different bureaus, operations being one of them. But we have fire prevention, we have EMS, we have support service, personnel and professional services, support service, and so on and so forth. Large organization. There's 213 sworn firefighters. We have a little bit over 50 non-sworn or administrative staff. Those include kind of a big portion of our administrative staff is in our dispatch center, as well as our fire prevention staff. So it does take a fair amount of us to provide for the public safety and the fire. In Ontario, we run approximately 24,000 calls a year, relatively busy for that size of a city. It continues to grow as we build out, as our community gets larger, population grows. We would certainly expect our call volume to increase, and as the years have proven, that is certainly happening. Luckily, we are planning and preparing, and we have grown as a department, as a public safety division. We have grown to match that threat. So we do a lot more than just fires and medical aids. Now that's certainly the bulk of what we do. 90% of what we do is looking after medical aids and or fires. But there's a lot more. Ontario is what we call an all-risk fire department. And what that means is we have, because of our threats and our hazards, we have to make sure that we have plans, people, training, equipment to meet the demands of those potential threats. So we have a FBI accredited bomb squad. Now that's very unique, okay? And we certainly provide service beyond just the city of Ontario. But again, all public safety bomb teams are taught in one school, and that's by the FBI, and that's out of Alabama, and we are a local accredited team. And so we have that, I guess, that's unique, and it's nice. So we have 9 bomb techs here in the city. In addition, we have the Urban Search and Rescue Team. That's a Type 1 team. State of California has different qualifications of typing of these teams. Type 1 is the best. It's the highest level of training that you can have. That typing, that Type 1, really the bulk of that comes from staffing, training, and equipment. And with that combination, if you meet that parameters, you have a Type 1 team, which in essence is as best as you can get, which means we can handle whatever emergency come our way. Similar to that is our hazmat team. Again, it is a Type 1 hazardous materials team, very similar to the USAR. We also have SWAT paramedics. We have 2 paramedics on every single fire engine. Frankly, we have probably more like 3, which is great. A lot of hands to help out. So I'm proud to say and thankful for the community in which I serve. There's no doubt we have state-of-the-art equipment, staffing, training, and resources. That is what truly sets us up for success. And with that, we are confident that we're going to be able to respond with efficiency and deliver the excellent service that the community, frankly, demands and expects. So let's talk a little bit more about response. So I would say that as a fire service, and I'll try to expand a little bit more, and I don't want to over represent, but I will speak a little bit in generalities of the fire service at large, even though clearly I work for a municipal city. But the fire service at large, I would say, is very well trained. Maybe not regulated necessarily, but heavily influenced or a little bit lots of words here. The state of California Fire Marshal dictates and drives our training and our standards. And so what that does, I'm going to get to kind of the mutual aid system, but what it does is we all think, act alike, right? We have the same training because it's all driven by the state fire marshal out of Sacramento. So we're very well trained. We're prepared. That is in our nature. It's what we do all day, every day, is prepare for the next call. So if we're not actually on an emergency, what we have to do is train for the next emergency. And so frankly, we just simply can't wait to respond. So service is our #1 priority. And service of the highest quality is our standard. Frankly, we look to exceed the expectations each and every day. That is certainly what we teach in Ontario, and frankly, the fire service at large, that is the expectation. I speak when I talk to recruits and I do some recruiting, it is a burden to carry. There's no doubt. There's a level of, I guess, stress that you have on you as a public safety representative, police and or fire, that the expectation of service with no mistakes is the burden we carry each and every day. And so it is a high standard, and it's something we must deliver on, because frankly, it's the expectation of the community as it should be. So when it comes to response, there's layers of redundancy. Now, when I say redundancy, I want to be clear. It's not duplication of efforts, and I wouldn't say that it's waste. What it is it's a matter of your safety as a community, and it's simply preparing for worst case scenario. And what that means is we always give a hard time to our federal partners. There's an acronym for everything in our business.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we use PACE. And what PACE is it keeps us organized in all of our plans, right? So you have a primary plan, right? You have an alternate plan. You have a contingency plan, and you got an escape plan. This is a plan. I'm not joking. That is how we prepare. And that is the plan. Sure, the primary plan is this, and that's what we hope to rely on. But by God, we darn better have the other three coming our way, right? Because the lack of planning, right, it would be a tragedy. And we certainly aren't going to let that happen. So we do a PACE plan on darn near every scenario that we can imagine. So teamwork makes the dream work in the fire service, right? Individually, we're strong, and we certainly train to be individually prepared and strong and capable. But truly, there isn't much we do individually. It really is teamwork. Okay, we have very specific roles, responsibilities, and we rely on our team to really carry out our mission. And so it's a force multiplier. Many hands do light work. That is truly what the fire service is all about. So I want to move on a little bit and talk to you a little bit more about the California State Master Mutual Aid System when I'm talking about teamwork. So the City of Ontario, my engine company, my truck companies, sure, that's strong. One engine isn't enough on a structure fire. We got to bring 4 to the party. We're bringing 2 trucks. We're bringing a BC. I'm bringing an ambulance. That's how we get it done, right? If I bring one engine company to the structure fire, the fire's going to go out, right? We all know that, right? But it's certainly not going to be done efficiently. It's not going to meet your standard, your expectation. We're probably going to lose most of the house, right? So we rely on teamwork to bring 4 engines, 2 trucks, a BC, an ambulance to really make sure we're prepared for the worst case scenario. And we get it done with efficiency. And so we kept that fire in check, and it's only 1 bathroom that we lost and not the whole house, right? That idea, that mentality translates to everything we do, every mission, every potential threat hazard that's out there. That's how we think. So the state of California at large, most departments, states nationwide, I would say, they rely on teamwork. Okay. In California, we call it the California Master Mutual Aid Plan. Okay. So the first element of that, the simplest element, is the City of Ontario. We have partners, right? Rancho Cucamonga, Chino, Upland, all of our neighboring cities. We get with them and we create an automatic aid agreement. So at the end of the day, if I get overrun in the City of Ontario, right, and I can't handle this emergency and I need help, that's okay. We have an agreement for that. That's called the automatic aid agreement. Rancho Chino, all of my partners that we have an agreement with, they're coming. No questions asked. We don't have to negotiate. We don't have, all that's done before. That's the automatic aid agreement. Okay? Automatic. Now the mutual aid system, a little bit different. There's a request. Okay? But it's well scripted. We use it all year long. Okay? There's a request that comes in for a specific resource or number of resources. There's somewhat of an expected timeline. The request is granted and resources come, and that's used up and down the state. City of Ontario firefighters go well beyond our local region. We're statewide resources, and frankly, we send them out of the state. We've been to New Mexico, Texas, Utah to help out other states. That's all through this Master Mutual Aid System. There's contracts that are established. There's 2 big contracts that we talk about in the California Master Mutual Aid System, the MMA and the CFAA. Really, those agreements or contracts that drive kind of the expectations, timing, finance side of receiving the monetary back, right? Because the City of Ontario shouldn't necessarily be footing the bill for an incident up in Northern California. And so those agreements are established there. But again, it's a very efficient system. It's well coordinated. It's used on a regular basis. I would say that communities up and down the state rely on it. Okay. It truly is a pivotal part of our abilities to provide public safety in the state. So on that note, I'm going to just bring up something. I'm bringing up a bunch of thoughts, and I'm hoping I get some questions at the end of this. So part of this system, California, the OES, California Office of Emergency Services, which works with this master mutual aid system, they drive it. When we have expected weather events, when we can predict weather events, floods, rains, wind, that sort of thing, we now are better at pre-positioning resources. So we'll actually stand up based on predictive services. We'll stand up resources, pre-position them in an area in which we can reasonably expect an emergency to hit, so that our response time to that community is much less. So that's certainly something that we use at large up and down the state. We mobilize resources in a region that there's an expected or a possible emergency to hit. All right, so building resiliency. I would say building a stronger community. This is really kind of the most of the shop out of my emergency management shop. So I'm not necessarily the expert, but I'm going to dabble in it a little bit today. So in Ontario, we have a coined phrase called Ready Ontario. And that's really the framework. They've done a really good job of branding it. I'm really proud of them. So it's the framework of education that we push out to the community so that our community is prepared. Because at the end of the day, our fire service and our police service, they could be ready to respond. And I'm confident in their abilities. We're going to do a great job, right? But what we also want is we need to have a partnership with our community, because we're not going to be there to provide all of their services when a disaster or true big, large scale emergency hits. We want to prepare them to help themselves for a short period of time so that we can at least mitigate the emergency, calm it down a little bit, get more resources so that we can start helping others. And that's what emergency management's all about. So they have an acronym. It's called KPIs. I love it. Not key performance indicators, equally as important. But these are: have a kit, make a plan, and be informed. So have a kit, make a plan, and be informed. So the kit, they want to have 3. Think about your daily life. They want to have one at home, one in your car, and one at work. Okay? Because you never know when the emergency is going to strike, and most of us spend pretty much most of our days at one of those 3 places. And so if you have a great kit at home, but you don't have one in your car, and emergency strikes when you're in your car, you're kind of out of luck on that. So they advise 3 kits, certainly going to be of varying size. So the essentials for survival should be in that kit. Things such as prescriptions, food, water, toiletries, clothing, documents is a really big one we'll talk a little bit more about. We often overthink that. You'll see if we can have some time, I can talk about a large incident we had in the city where having your documents, if you lose your house, think fire, flood, that sort of thing, having these documents or backup documents will really help you get back on your feet and get life going again. We want to store those cool, dry place out of direct sunlight. Check them periodically. A lot of people store them, they forget about them. That's a bad idea. We want to check them like our smoke detectors every 6 months, replenish as needed. So the plan, there's several plans, right? We want to start with our family, have an emergency action plan. An evacuation checklist is something we should certainly talk about and have. If I get evacuated, if you live in a wildland threat zone, let's call it, you live up in the foothills and you have an interface area where a wildland fire is a threat of yours, you certainly want to have an evacuation checklist. What are the most important items that if I have to get evacuated, I want to grab? It doesn't have to be wildfire. We can talk about hazmat. We can talk about a lot of different threats. All of these things, even work. What is your checklist of things, if you were to get evacuated out of this building, you would want to grab and be out of here in quick, right? I'm talking, let's get out of here in 30 minutes, right? What are the significant items we want to grab and take with us if we're going to be out of here for several days or a week or so? Okay. And then the last thing is training. So there's a number of different training, and it depends on those threats that we're considering. So in Ontario, they have several programs that emergency management teaches. CERT, it's Community Emergency Response Teams. So we have community members that receive training. It's a series of classes. We then have them as part of our team, right? When called upon, they respond in, they have a level of training, equipment. We can put them into teams and help us with evacuations or serving, so on and so forth. So that's a very common training platform that community members can get. Listos Ready Ontario Core, that program is for businesses. And so that emergency management will actually come out and work with a business and teach you some resiliency training for your business as opposed to personally at home. Think about EMS, first aid, CPR, active shooter, run, hide, fight training, disease. My goodness, we have to talk about COVID. I think we learned a lot through that, right? Earthquake, drop, cover, hold, hazardous materials, stay uphill, upwind, upstream. Think about plastic sheeting, duct tape, know your ventilation systems, okay? Because if we shelter in place, because of hazmat, I don't want you to leave the building. We don't want to have our ventilation system going, drawing in the hazardous air from outside, bring it into your building. So we want to know how to control our AC systems, right? We can potentially talk about sheeting, duct tape, that sort of thing to really protect you. Home fires, I think we've been learning a lot about that since we were a kid, but exit drills in the home, have a plan for the family, power outages, things like backup generators, flashlights, that sort of thing. Terrorism, see something, say something. All of these are forms of training that I think the nation at large, certainly state, pushes out and provides for the community. Last thing is be informed. So how do we communicate when emergencies hit? So in Ontario, we have something called the Alert Ontario. That's a registry that we look for folks to register with us, name, numbers, that sort of thing. We then put you in a Rolodex, in a book, in a communications platform where we can message specific pertinent information out to you directly because you've registered with us. That's the Alert Ontario. The wireless emergency alert system, I think all of us have on our cell phones. That's through the iPause system. That's another big form of emergency alerting. The big one that I hope everybody is using is media, right? City of Ontario, we use all your major social media platforms, X, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, we use them all. They're all good platforms for messaging. Nextdoor, Nixle, we're active and use both of those. And then good old fashioned press release and press briefings, right? Those are still very good platforms. When we have these major emergencies, disasters, we're going to get some news coverage. We appreciate it. They're really good partners with us. We'll establish timelines. We'll have press briefings, really. And that's how we can really share information, accurate, timely information with our community members on how they can help us, right, get our community back on our feet. Okay. Local assistance centers and disaster recovery centers. Those are two other forms that we can probably have some more conversation about. Those are two different forms of measures that responders will stand up and help the community recover. So if it's a local incident or local emergency, we're going to stand up a local assistance center. If it's a large nationwide disaster, such as these large hurricanes, floods, that sort of thing, you're going to have FEMA come in, and that's going to be your disaster recovery center. So those are, I'm going to call it the one-stop shop. We would set up in a gymnasium, an arena, something to that standpoint, and we would partner with all of the different entities, agencies, such as tax assessor's office, your building department for permits, plans, all of that, DMV for getting new IDs. So whoever's standing up, either one of those would reach out to all the different partner organizations, agencies, bring them in to one building. That way, community members who are impacted by this disaster, they would have a one-stop shop to get themselves going again. I think I'm going to call it, leaving time for some questions. I hope I've hit the mark, but if I didn't, I'm expecting some questions.
Thank you so much, Mike. Go ahead, right before we open up for the Q&A for the room and online, I wanted to direct a question over to Todd. How do you balance the need for immediate response with long-term goal of helping communities become more self-reliant and prepared for future challenges and or growth from your end? I know Mike touched on that a little bit on his end, so I wanted to push that back to you.
So thank you, Lexi. So we work hand in hand with our municipalities and county EOCs as far as rebuilding. Majority of the time, we're right there with them in rebuilding and prioritizing. We meet with our large account customers. We meet with our EOCs and municipalities prior to June 1st each year, so we can prioritize our critical infrastructure and how we bring them back in the order we respond.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to open it up for questions. It looks like we have one right here in the front. Just waiting. There you go.
Oh, there we go. First of all, thank you both for being here. Todd, we do a lot of work with Duke Energy. You guys are fantastic. Really appreciate the entire organization and how much you guys have really helped us. My question is for Deputy Chief. Is it Wedell or Wedell?
Wedell.
Wedell, okay, Deputy Chief Wedell. First of all, I want to say Ontario is a place I've spent the early part of my career. I appreciate you guys immensely. You guys have been at our facility numerous times. I've never felt more partnership than with you and your organization. And like you said, you're in a tough town. I think of Ontario, you got big city, you got the 10 and the 15, which you underplayed a little bit. This is like this is where all the industrial traffic in the Western US goes through. You've got fire season, you've got fireworks, you've got all these different things, but you just do a fantastic job. The two questions I had was one, you talked about predictive staging, which I think is fascinating, and we're using more AI and predictive tools in our business. Has there been any discussion of any type of use of AI to be more predictive of events? And then second, and you can take this in whatever order, but second, you talked about a lot of ways that we could better prepare us, our team members, to make sure everyone around us is safe. My question is more on a broader scale. How as a company, we desperately want to be great partners to you. What are the things that we can do to be a great partner? Maybe what are the things that we should not do in our desire to be, a great partner to you and the folks on the front line?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind remarks, and I'll attack both those questions. I think the first one is regarding the AI. So AI is certainly being used. I wouldn't say necessarily at a local level in the Ontario Fire Department yet. We're not quite to that point, but I think the California Fire Service, certainly when it comes to the wildland arena, in that sense, they are using truly the Wildland Predictive Services branch, which is a big machine. They are using a lot of AI when it comes to modeling these fires, because it's very, very science driven when it comes to the fuel beds, the humidity, wind. They are getting very good. I'm extremely thankful and impressed with the scientists who are studying this. They are getting very good at studying when these fires are going to strike, where they're going to strike. They may not necessarily know certainly that it will happen here and not here, but they certainly know that this area is at a greater threat than over here because of that predictive services. AI is certainly being used in that area. The last thing where AI is being used in the wildland arena extensively is with the use of cameras. So the California Fire Service has cameras up and down the state that are constantly watching. And through the use of AI, it is seeing these fires from the very incipient stage or the beginning when these fires kick off, which now expedites our response. When we have these fires that start in remote areas where you don't have a bunch of human eyes to start the response, that's where these cameras can really come into play, and AI is being used there. Yeah. So the second question, I'm not sure necessarily if I can give you a real good answer there. I think that partnerships are everything. Relationships are truly you know, it's everything. And we are, I think fire departments rely on the teamwork, and it starts with partnerships and relationships that happen before the emergencies hit. We have a saying that when the emergency hits and you go to the command post, you certainly don't want to be doing any introductions, right? It's just, if you're doing introductions when you're at the command post or in the EOC, far too late, right? All of that needs to be done well before the emergency strikes. There you go. I love it. Thank you very much. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. So I would look forward to any kind of conversation, engagement, how we can better be partners through the years. You know, Niagara and the City of Ontario, and certainly the fire department, we've had a long-lasting partnership. We're extremely appreciative of it. You know, so how we can do that better, I think is probably a longer conversation that I would look forward to, you know, any of our business partners, communities at large, you know, reaching out on how to develop those relationships and how we can help each other. I know one way that the fire departments look to help is frankly through these training opportunities. You know, we're you know, several times a year we're out there meeting with businesses, providing these classes because we see the benefit in it long term. So, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Todd.
I didn't mean, sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. Yes, we have another question.
Well, it's not really a question, but well, first of all, thank you. Thank you, Todd. And please tell Mark Hohenstein, because he's got 3 of his economic development colleagues from Florida in this room with him. So tell him thank you, and thank you for agreeing to step into this capacity for us. One of the things I did want to acknowledge is the fact that although you two did not coordinate on your presentations, you did talk about the predictive staging together, and you talked about how our utility companies work with our fire marshals and our counties on those emergency situations and some of that AI, at least in trying to determine where something would hit. We know we've got those hurricane situations in Florida and we're modeling all the time and we think it's going here and it's going there, and how we stage and you all stage rather, and try to be better prepared so that you're not moving resources in or trying to move them in when we know we can't get them in when all the lines are down and the trees are down and there's flooding everywhere. So first of all, I thank you all because your presentations actually coincide with each other, and so we do that. But I do have a question with regards to growth, because we talk a lot about disasters, but we also know that we have growing communities. How are you all preparing to deal with growth from a utility perspective, Todd, on your end, and preparing them knowing that we're in perhaps a state where there's natural disasters in every place, really. But then also from the fire department, as you continue to have growing city, expanding areas, annexed areas, all of that, and what are you guys doing to make sure that our communities stay informed and that your response times to emergencies stay within a reasonable limit, so that if I do call 911, I know somebody's coming and it's not 2 hours from now. And Todd, in your situations, positioning yourself so that we have those substations and all those things prepared to deal with that growth.
Thank you. Great question. And definitely we have a team working on our load forecasting that looks at, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years out, and what development is coming, and build the substations adequately, as well as working in partnership with our fire departments and EOCs for where our shelters will be as growth continues and we start to overcome some of the shelters that we have. A good example, I was just recently last week out in Seminole County, work on the EOC, and not really realizing the importance of the middle of the state. As each coast evacuates, we have special needs shelters in the middle of the state that we need to focus and make sure they're our top priority, especially needs children and other customers that converge into the middle of the state where it's the safest. But basically continue working with the EOCs to identify those areas. As far as the staging that you mentioned, we do have a 65-acre site in just south of the villages in Ocala, in the middle of the state, which is near the turnpike, near I-75, so we can get anywhere in the state. We can stay out of harm's way, but we bring as many resources as we can in early so we can coordinate our deployment as soon as it's all clear. Hopefully that answered the question for you.
It does. That's good to know. It's not far from my house.
So to your second question, from a response standpoint from a community that's been growing, and to be honest, Ontario's been growing for a fair amount of years, and so we've been doing a lot of that. The first word that comes to mind is planning. I mean, it really is preparing and planning and studying. And you rely on, I guess, education and communication. So there's a balance for a community, for a city. Public safety is very expensive. We're an extremely expensive resource, from the staffing, equipment, apparatus, stations. I mean, to do it right, it's expensive. And so as the community grows, you certainly want to plan and be able to serve your community equally, right, in all areas. And that can be a challenge. A way that you do it is, frankly, the way you start is just providing the education. You make it known the impact or your ability to provide service in an area with the resources that you have currently. And at some point, the community expects better than that, and we then have to expand, okay? And that typically means a new fire station, fire apparatus, staffing, and so on and so forth. Oftentimes, that will be a temporary station, and that's good and okay because you can stand it up quicker. You can get the help you need there while the community continues to build out, while a permanent location is getting acquired and stood up. I think, involving, when I come to the relationship side, and the education, there's a number of folks, obviously your city council, your city management, your community activists, the partnership side of things. As the community is growing, there's a lot of partners. You have your developers, right? These large housing developers, they're really good partners, right? They want to build a community that is well known, right? They want and we have a mission to serve them. Well, with a partnership between the two, there's funding streams that become available to build that safe community that we're all looking to have. And I think that there's an avenue that we've had great success in Ontario, is through partnershiping with those developers to fund some of this growth with safety in mind.
Thank you. Thank you both for your time today. I think we can all take away the pace of that. Everyone has a pace. We are going to start the next session at the top of the hour for culture and delivering on your brand. But thank you all for being here, and thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.